Welcome to Haycraft Ministries. Didn't put up a ministry moment today. It's just one of those, the level of fatigue some days is just ridiculous. For those of you who may be new to the channel or who may come along at some point, trying to deal with mentally ill incarcerated husband wears on you. I got sentenced right along with him. I had no representation. Neither did youngest son, and we still going through it. This started 2013. I have videos that detail the journey, but one of the things is the overwhelming sense of fatigue some days, and in some ways almost a hopelessness. It's not that I've been silent in any way during this process. It's been very disheartening as an American citizen to reach out to elected officials and them do nothing. And that or sometimes they'll give like a if I'm doing well, I get a formulated form email or some such. Other than that, it's just silence. Because there's so many people, they don't want to deal with mental illness. They don't want to deal with the fact that a lot of times the mentally ill are being warehoused in prisons in our nation. They want to see these people as bad people, as crazy people, and that society just doesn't want to deal with them. And that's heartbreaking. You know, who have we become as a nation? If we can't take care of the ones that are sick in mind, body, or spirit, then who are we as a church? If we want to only have the beautiful people, that is not who Christ went to. He went to the broken. Remember, it's like Jesus, friend of sinners. Thank God for that. My husband he actually did finally get a cell change after being housed for 2 weeks with a gentleman who was given medicine for schizophrenia. And the gentleman was spitting his medicine out, so pill count was not being done properly. They were not taking the time to make sure whether he had ingested the medication. That's a peculiar thing about schizophrenics. A lot of times when they take the medication, the symptoms, of course, get a lot better, and then they will stop taking the medication. And oldest kid, when I was discussing that with him, he said that's probably because a lot of the current psychiatric medications can cause people to feel really, really bad. And so do you feel bad mentally or do you feel bad physically? And there has to be some alternative between the two. So anyhow, for 2 weeks, Michael asking to be moved. It was a matter of calling TDOC after the first week, because on the weekends these people are locked down from Friday. They're locked down 23 hours a day anyhow. They get an hour out for recreation, and then they're locked in. Now imagine being trapped in a cell for 72 hours with somebody that is schizophrenic. And my husband has issues, but schizophrenia isn't one of them. So I had contacted TDOC. It was a matter of me calling one individual. I was transferred to another individual who transferred me to another individual who told me that I would have to contact the warden of the facility, because that the psychiatric staff at the facility was supposed to make the move. They had told Michael they couldn't make the move, that to ask every officer that he saw to move him, that he needed to be moved. He did that. He followed directions and, was basically punished for that, which included one officer who's all about the ego, and that because Michael asked him more than once the guy through the request form for communications. Yeah, they had to fill out request forms for communications a lot of times. Threw that in the floor, came over and chided Michael, "How dare you ask me," more than once. So he finally found somebody that was compassionate enough to let him move. And now he's in a cell that the ventilation is not working properly. He said that it's a matter of just being in there. It's sort of like a brick oven because the way the sun hits on the cell, it heats it up. And we all know that brick holds heat, and they don't have a fan because his previous facility allowed someone to rip the cord out of his fan. It's a $30-some fan, and at some point when I get the funds, I'm going to have to replace that. And, that was my property. The people that were at the facility at Morgan County allowed other people to destroy my property. When Michael was transferred to the Turney Center, where he's at currently, they did not do an itemized list of his property, which that's something that you're supposed to do. You're supposed to itemize every piece of property that an inmate has, have a printout on that, have the inmate sign that to make sure that it's correct. So when he was being denied his hygiene and religious material, everything, for 5 days, he was put on property restriction. The first time that they tried to move him into the cell with the individual, even though Michael went in the cell, it was the other individual with schizophrenia that told Michael he couldn't cell with him. So the lieutenant, or no, I think she was a corporal at that time, my bad, had told Michael that she didn't have any place else to move him, and she sent him back to his previous unit, and they wrote him up for refusing cell assignment, even though he didn't refuse cell assignment. After the 5 days, when they moved him back to the other unit, put him back in the cell with the schizophrenic, the same corporal had even, her name's Corporal Walters, she'd even asked Michael, she's like, "Are you ready for this?" Because they knew exactly how the gentleman was. They know he's got schizophrenia. They know that the behavior is bizarre. And Michael asked her about the write-up, and she's like, "I didn't write you up." So somebody had forged her name to it. She was told about this. She was shown the paperwork, and she did nothing. So during that 5 days, he had like $150 worth of property stolen. It happens, and it's these facilities don't care about the inmate's property. They don't care about the family. They told him that Morgan County had sent a list that said that these items were lost, which they weren't lost, and he had proof of that. So that's $150 plus the fan, which will be like $180 some of property that I will have to replace at some point. They can only have property sent to them 4 times a year. You have to order these things off of Union Supply. You can't even shop around for the best prices. And it's all a money racket. The fact that they're keeping him in protective custody, of course they have to keep him in protective custody. Otherwise, members of the Vice Lords and the Crips who had put the kill on sight order for him can get to him because these people don't care. And knowing that somebody's suffering every day because they are because they're an adult survivor of child abuse, that's kind of hard to deal with. I mean, I'm not. How do you emotionally distance yourself from that? I don't think you can, or at least I can't. It's like where one goes, the other one goes. If he suffers, I suffer right along with him. And he was very escalated on Friday. And it was a matter of him wanting his story to be told. And I did record a phone conversation at one point But there's always the fear that out of retaliation, which that's the whole thing with this, is Morgan County decided to ship him to the Tarney Center 6 hours away from me because of that I went to the press about how he was being treated. I'm sure that, all these things are a factor. That's not paranoia, that's fact. Because there's no one guarding the guards. We need independent watchdog groups. We need to have corrections officers that are required by law to wear body cams with audio and make this available to the public. Because while they're behind, within their own little private kingdoms, and that's what it is, they're accountable to no one. But my husband was wanted me to record him again. The fear is that they will take away his phone privileges, or that they'll send him someplace else even worse. There's always the fear that he would be beaten, because that happens. And I have seen other inmates that had the bruising and stuff where they were beaten by officers. And Michael had said that what they do, a lot of times they take these people out of camera sight. They use body shots so that a lot of bruising is not obvious. They put them in, they call it the hole, which is segregation, until they heal, and then they let them back out because no one is holding them accountable. That's assault. These are Gestapo tactics. And where they can't get to me, they can certainly get to him. And it's one of those typical abuser forms of thought. It's like, how dare you tell someone that I'm abusing you? Which is not helping the mental illness at all. And Michael has been locked down 23 to 24 hours a day since October 5th, 2017, because he went to another unit. And because his behavior was bizarre when he found out that he had been seen, he hid in a laundry cart, had somebody roll him back out to the recreation yard. And the fact that these people don't understand that people who are mentally ill from time to time have bizarre behavior, because we have people who don't understand the population that they're dealing with. And they don't care. It makes these people it makes the inmates bad people, and them the good people. They're the good guys. They protecting the society and stuff like that. They believe that until it's their people, until they have to go through it. We need treatment facilities. But that's not going to happen because the corrections industry they make a tremendous amount of money through incarceration. That's why they continue to do it. It looks like that treatment facilities, they still need employees. They would still need to clothe and feed people. So I don't see how just switching it over would be losing money in any way. But also it's a form of thought that people, if they're punished enough, their behavior will improve. And that's not true of mental illness. That's not how that works. It just adds insult to injury. And as far as families, and there are millions of us going through this. Because if somebody didn't have some kind of a mental health issue, I know there are the people that occasionally just make some really poor decisions. But mental health issues impact your ability to make a proper decision. So there's millions of us going through this. And it needs to change. These draconian tactics need to change. And writing to legislator after legislator, and it was what Michael was wanting to do the other day, And it was just one of those things. I wanted to encourage him, but I didn't want to encourage him because I know the response that I've had. Even as far as the YouTube videos. I was just listening to a gentleman earlier who was talking about how even with the videos, somebody wants it to look a certain way, to have a certain production value. And, I don't. I've that is not my field of expertise. And does it have to have bells and whistles before somebody will listen? Have we become that jaded as a society that what someone has to share, their life experience, their expertise, their wisdom, has to be presented in an entertainment form? I wish I had answers. I don't. The only answer I have is Yeshua. And every day holding on to Him. Every day holding on to that faith that at some point God will make it all make sense. That at some point we will trade ashes for beauty. That sorrow will be turned into dancing. That at some point somebody who has some kind of power to do something, which goes back to the people. Sometimes we forget as individuals that when we group with other individuals, that is what produces change. Because the elected elite, they do still have to pay attention to a lot of the public. If you get enough people squalling, things will change. We've seen that happen with other groups. We need more of the community-based mental health treatment also, those options. There are so many people. Most people don't want to go into the field of mental health because there's not a lot of money in it. And it certainly ain't glamorous. When you're dealing with families that have experienced incarceration and somebody gets that current scarlet letter of felon, it's hard for them to get a job, which is condemning people to poverty. Then you've got children that are in the family that they've had to deal with an incarcerated parent. And then we get more broken people. We get more people that are going to do what they need to do to try to survive. If that's selling drugs, manufacturing drugs, stealing, all these types of things. All this stuff goes in together. It's a big ball of goo. We need jobs in this area. Very grateful that President Trump has made great strides in other areas as far as bringing jobs back to the country. We need them here. We need them now. In this area, meth is rampant. And it is just heartbreaking to see some of these people. When I was an officer, some of these people that were in their 20s, especially the women that looked like they were 90, they looked like the caricatures of the hillbillies that people like to put on people in this area. They had lost their teeth. The thinness, skeletal. And some of these people looked like they came out of the concentration camps. It's a horrible, horrible drug. And that one of the reasons people are drawn to that, for some reason people that are bipolar have a tendency to gravitate towards meth. I don't understand that. It's true. It seems that for whatever mental illness is going on within the individual, that they gravitate towards a specific street drug, trying to self-medicate. And a lot of it has to do with hopelessness. And poverty produces this feeling of hopelessness. The way that the current system is structured, even as far as apologize, it's allergy season, trying to give government assistance to people. Now, that's government slavery. Because if people try to better themselves, then their benefits are cut. Now, you've always got people that they work the system, and they teach others how to work the system. And it was never intended to be a lifestyle, but that these people have sold themselves short for so long that they don't believe that they can do anything else. So I don't know. But it's a matter of keeping on. And the video that I watched this morning, it was called, I think, Christian Truthers. I will put a link at the bottom of this to the individual. And his production style was wonderful. He was, somehow schooled in media marketing, something like that. And that's a wonderful thing, because I got more encouragement from that young man in 10 minutes than I had in a while. And I'm grateful for him. But he said it was a matter of us speaking out while we have the opportunity. And he was absolutely right. And that was a matter of God giving me marching orders for today to keep on keeping on. And at least I can stand in front of him and say, I tried. Prayers are always appreciated. Let us pray one for another. Have a beautiful, blessed day.